Get started now. I'm Megan Allers, head of community here at Marco Polo, and I'll be moderating our conversation today. I've been working at Marco Polo for 9 years now, which is really awesome, and it has to totally do with our purpose. I'm here because I really believe in the purpose of Marco Polo to help people feel close. And throughout my time here, I've gotten the chance to talk to and polo with so many moms who have shared, how busy and fulfilling, but often isolating and lonely the season of life can be. But they've also shared how impactful creating and nurturing relationships through Marco Polo has been on their mental health and overall well-being because it's giving them the type of connection that they couldn't otherwise have because life is so busy. Aren't we all so busy? We're running from thing to thing, but being able to connect is so helpful in our overall health. And I've been so inspired from these stories, and it's been a catalyst for hosting this event today and the reason we care so much about maternal mental health. So, I want to share this short video from our community when we ask them about what connecting with the people who matter most does for their journey in motherhood.
Reaching out is genuinely the most important thing that you can do for you because it makes you a better mom.
And it doesn't have to be complicated, long or short.
You may post updates in life or you may post a status, but it's not the same as that direct message to a friend or a family member in the moment, sharing those emotions.
We're able to get on there and share our hearts, just let it all fly out.
Complaining about our lives, sharing our victories, whatever it is, every single day we're checking in with each other.
Check in on your people. How are you really doing?
I love hearing from our community in that way, and I just their tone of really checking in on your mom friends. Mom friends are so awesome in that they ask, "How are you really doing?" and they know the answer before you even say it. They are those judgment-free, supportive relationships that get you through it and everything that it encompasses from joy to stress, exhilaration to exhaustion. So I want to kick today off by starting by celebrating our mom friends. So if you haven't already, change your settings on the chat from host and panelists to everyone and tell us, what do your mom friends mean to you? What do your mom friends mean to you? We're sharing over in the chat. So let us know. A lifeline. Tiana, I love that. Lifeline, Felisa. Yes. Free talk therapy. My tribe. Sanity. I love that. Sisterhood. Oh, that is amazing. Sounding board. Warm hugs on demand. That is so sweet. Yes. Safe space to vent and celebrate. Second mama to my kiddos. I love that. Someone who gets me, validation, light in the harbor. Oh, these are such good examples of friendship. Well, let's keep that chat going throughout today's conversation. As I mentioned, Tier from the Marco Polo team is in the chat. We'll be answering some questions and we'll have some Q&A at the end. But for right now, I'd love to introduce you to our today's panel is featuring three wonderful women and moms. So first up, I'd love to introduce Danielle Baynard-Jackson, who is a women's relational health educator and author of Fighting for Our Friendships, the science and art of conflict and connection in women's relationships. Danielle, if you want to turn your video on, welcome to the panel. And I'd love to ask you, Danielle, that same question. What do mom friends mean to you?
Oh gosh, mom friends are the source of energy, reassurance, and just to know that you are not alone. I know that sometimes parenting feels really hard, and we convince ourselves that it's just us who understands and who's going through it. And it's just really nice to have people you trust to simply say to you, you are not alone.
Love that. Thank you so much for being here, Danielle. Next up, I'd love to introduce Jamie O'Neill. She is the founder of the Mom Walk Collective, which creates real spaces for moms to meet, connect, and raise the next generation together. Welcome, Jamie. And I've got to ask you the same question, Jamie. What do your mom friends mean to you?
Yeah, this is such a great question because I think if I come into actually understanding the value of mom friends, I have to come into the season before motherhood and not knowing what life looked like without having a village and community around you. And I love getting vulnerable, so you guys are going to get to hear me and everything right away and into my story. But I was going through a divorce after being married 5 years when I was pregnant. And so I came into motherhood as a single mom and was one of the first people in my friend group to, one, have a baby, but also come into that motherhood journey kind of a little more solo than what is like traditionally expected, especially in my community. And so, as I was pulling on my community to talk about my journey of motherhood, I realized, oh my gosh, there isn't a common factor of my everyday reality. And that eventually what led me to start my organization. And now, my biggest thing that I found in mom friends is this beautiful safety of understanding as well as encouragement and empowerment. Where when I talk about my son's eating or my son's bathroom journey. I have a 3-year-old right now, so we're in the potty training journey, that there's this mutual understanding where I don't have to put on a front or try to explain my reality or in the jump in, jump out of conversation. There's so much grace given. And for me, I just look at other women and other moms as this like superhero because they're able to meet women where they're at because they're mutually learning and walking through a new life experience. No matter whatever age the kids are, that comes with new life experience. And so there's just this humility in motherhood and finding mom friends that see similarly then in that with you is one of the most beautiful and safe places to ever be.
So well said, Jamie. And we're going to hear more about your story and community skills as well, because it seems like you really built up your village. So excited to have you on here today. And last but certainly not least, I'd love to introduce us to Megan Champion, the founder of Mothers Together and now also Fathers Together, a global support community that connects struggling moms with others who truly understand. Welcome, Megan. We've got a big question for you. What do your mom friends mean to you?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. I appreciate it, and I'm so excited to be here. I specifically am supporting moms and now dads who are raising neurodivergent children. And so to answer that question, it's it's more than just a safe space. There's a deep, deep level of trust with mom friends who understand the life that you're living and the challenges and the hardships that go with that, and celebrating the wins as well. But it is a next level depth. And so even though I feel like society in general will say mom friends are easy to come by, they're easy to have, they're easy to form, laughter, trust, safety, love, and I totally agree with all of those things. For moms who are raising neurodivergent children who are out of the box, it is a little bit of a different story because you are not your first protection is for your children. And so you need to make sure truly that you are honestly in a safe space. And so forming those friendships are a little tougher to do, but once you do them, they are your entire world just shifts. They're everything. And sisterhood doesn't even touch it. They become just part of you, that your support web. So super, super important conversation to have.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Megan, I'm so glad you're here to talk about that and the community you've built as well. So thank you, each of us, so each of you here for joining us. We're so grateful to have you here. And before we get started for the panel, we have one more guest I'd like to introduce to you to share about why a video chat app is talking about mental health. And who better to share than why Marco Polo is talking about maternal mental health than our own CEO and co-founder, Vlada Bortnik. Vlada,
Hi, everybody.
welcome. Glad to have you on here. The chat's blowing up already, Vlada. They're excited.
So nice. It's like, this is always one of my highlights, getting to connect with our community. And like somebody else, I wish we could see everybody's faces and actually be in the room with each other. I can't even imagine the kind of energy that would create. But for now, I'm just going to imagine all the smiling faces, and the chat is definitely giving up a lot of energy here too. So I just want to say thank you all for being here. It's amazing, and I appreciate the support and also appreciate being willing to have this conversation with us. Um, and this question of why is a video chat hosting a maternal mental health event? Well, it's because we're not just any video chat app, Megan. As you know, We we are hosting because we actually care very, very deeply about mental health, about moms, and about helping people feel close. At Marco Polo, for those of you who know what we do, our whole purpose is to help people feel close. And it's that purpose that I think sets us really apart. In fact, I don't know how many of you know, but the purpose actually is what inspired us to get started in the first place. Like most companies get started with an idea in mind. In our case, we started the journey very non-traditionally with the purpose. And for us, this purpose is what sets us apart. Like every decision we make, every hire we make, every design iteration, all that has the purpose at its core. And the maternal mental health matters so much for us because it matters so much in the journey of motherhood. The early days, the raw days, I mean, Jamie, the kind of like moving from the very early days to the potty training days, like those are some real stuff happening on the potty training, and the exhaustion in the middle of the night. And then now I have teenagers, like, so navigating that journey, there's just so much happens as a mom. And it can be really isolating, really at every stage if you don't prioritize relationships. And so if Marco Polo can really help one more person feel supported, more seen on that journey, then we're living our purpose. And that's what it's all about for us. And I touched on this a little bit, but I just want to share a bit about how we got started because we actually started Marco Polo when we started growing our family. I don't know how many of you know this story. I don't know. This is where I wish I could see hands popping up or something, but I'm just going to imagine. So I was pregnant with our second daughter, and our oldest was still, I think, 9 months old. And we were really struggling to stay meaningfully in touch with the family. Of course, you can post messages on social media and you can send text messages, but it's really not the same. Like everybody wanted to see the kids and they wanted to hear the updates. And while being a mom and working, that is not like an easy thing to do. And it just started becoming a chore, like this thing of like, I wanted my family to be part of our lives, but it was super hard. They were spread across the world, became video calls, scheduled video calls on the weekends. So this thing that was supposed to really fill up my cup was actually becoming quite draining. And so at the same time, my husband and he and I are co-founders. We're thinking, what can we do about this? And given our expertise in tech, both of us had experience working at Microsoft before. What was the biggest thing contribution we can make in the world? And as we were thinking about this, and especially because we're parents, the thing that kept coming up was just that we wanted to have more happiness in the world. I bet anybody here, if you ask, what is they want more in the world, happiness will be in the top three answers. But perhaps unlike many other parents, we actually thought if we could just understand all the research behind it, then we can engineer really happy kids. And then we can also engineer much more happiness in the world. And so we read all the research and we did all the analysis. And what's interesting is all that ended up coming to one thing. And that is that relationships are the only things that really matter. There was this huge study that was done by Harvard, the grant study that took 80 years to complete. And it boiled down to one thing, is that you can have all the things. You can have the wealth, you can have professional success, you can have it all. But if you don't have meaningful relationships, you will not be happy. And that's pretty amazing, given how important this is. Like, how much time do we actually spend on our relationships? There's more that we can be doing. And anyway, this sense of purpose is really why I'm here. I bet this is why Megan is here for the past 9 years. And really everybody in our team is so deeply committed to this mission. We really see it not as a nice to have, but something that we believe the world must have. And we really believe that everybody deserves to feel close. And like I already said, I'm a mom of two girls. I really understand the burnout, the overwhelm, and at times loneliness that comes with being a mom. So this event and this app is not just an app and not just an event. This is really deeply personal to me as well. And we've heard from so many moms who are using Marco Polo that, people have already said that Lifeline, that's what Marco Polo has become to so many of you. When life gets really busy, like all that noise, having just a moment, like the women were saying in that video, just to check in to say like, hey, I'm thinking about you, or how's the potty training going, or hey, my kid's throwing tantrum, I'm hitting them right now. And hearing back that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Like those moments of connection are just so important. Um, and it's not like, I really believe it's not just helpful, it's really life-saving. So anyway, this is why we're here. This is why it matters. And um, yeah, I think like my ask is like, we know the relationships matter. So why are we seeing data like this? Why are we not making time for more of connection?
Yeah, Vlada, I know this is so important, and I'm really glad we're talking about it today. Hearing you talk about our purpose and the research behind it, like always really makes me excited about the work we're doing at Marco Polo because it is so impactful and really helping so many. So thank you, Vlada, so much for being here with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And thanks for doing this.
Yeah. I wanted to highlight this stat. It might not feel surprising to many here today. It's some of the data from Motherly's annual State of Motherhood survey, and it shows that 49% of moms are feeling burned out and lonely. Probably equally not as surprising is that 51% of moms haven't seen the face of a friend in over a month. Moms are feeling lonely, but even more moms aren't prioritizing the self-care of connection with the very people who know what they're going through. So, why aren't more moms connecting and how can they start? That's where I want to kick off today's panel with us. And Danielle, I want to start it over for you. Is it common in adulthood to struggle to make friends? And what are the biggest misconceptions mom have about making new friends as adults?
Yeah, I primarily work with women who are like older Gen Z to like early 50s, and they're all saying the same thing, and that's it's hard making friends. And I always address that as the first step toward doing it is the mindset, the belief that it's just not possible for me, or the shame around it. We think, oh my gosh, at my age, why is this so difficult at my age? And we've got to stop that. We never learned how to do it because it was something that happened naturally due to the social infrastructure that we naturally had when we were in school that just kind of helped to facilitate those moments for us. Now, suddenly we're out there in the world and we've got to facilitate it for ourselves, but we never learned how to do that. I also like citing a research study that found that we replace half of our friends every 7 years. Now, this was done pre-pandemic. I don't know what that looks like now. But to me, that shows that there's a natural pruning process that happens. So we are kind of losing some people just due to circumstances. Maybe it's nothing extreme. But if we don't have the skill of being able to invite friends in and we don't know where to position ourselves or what to say, then our churn rate is very low. And a lot of us find ourselves maybe in a season of friendlessness. You couple that with the isolation around parenthood, and it can be really, really difficult. So I think we've got to stop any shame that we feel around the fact that we feel like friendship is such a challenge in adulthood.
Danielle, I love that stat that you shared about the half of our friendships every 7 years. I didn't realize that, and that is interesting. And it's life circumstance that kind of brings new people into your life, and maybe we'll let go of some other friendships. And I love to turn over to Megan and Jamie. Why do you think making and maintaining friendships as a mom feels different and often harder than it did before motherhood? Maybe Megan, we can start with you and then pass it to Jamie.
Yeah, sure. I think going back to societal, if we look at it from that point of view, society says that good moms give their all to their children, all of themselves. You give 100% until you are burned out, but you don't show that. And you put a smile on your face and you say, motherhood is the absolute best thing that has ever happened to me, and nothing could possibly be better. Now, I'm not saying that that's not true, but day in and day out, sometimes it doesn't feel like that in the moment. And so friendships are incredibly hard not just to make, but to keep when you don't know who you can say that to. When you don't know if you can say, I am tired of being with my kids today. I am tired and I need a break and I want to walk out my front door. Those are really hard conversations to have. And so many mothers worldwide don't know if there is a safe place to put those thoughts where they will not only be held safely and like kept, but also someone to say, I understand. I understand that feeling. I understand what you're going through. I've felt that same way before. And so the depth of those tough conversations, I think, is what makes it really, really hard especially in my case with moms raising neurodivergent kids where there's honestly a lot of really hard moments. There is for everybody, but it's a specific type of challenging moments at times.
Yeah, thank you for that, Megan. Jamie, curious if there's any thoughts for you around maintaining friendships as a mom.
Yeah, I think one thing for me, I always like, I call it with my friends, is just like taking the temperature. And in reality, so much, Danielle, like you said, it was so structured of you had school, you had sports, you had activities, that is your daily calendar. So when you step into motherhood, usually the closest people to you in your life are just in proximity. And when you become a mom, you spend a lot more time at home. And so the proximity becomes a lot smaller because it comes to what your home life looks like. So a lot of the times I always just like bring into reality of people of like, hey, let's just do a temperature check. You went from working in corporate America, being in an office with 20 plus people, your friends would go out on the weekends, you would see family, you had your church community, and now the temperature check is you are around your children 80% of the time. And it went from maybe 80% of the time being in public with people around you to now 80% of the time being one-on-one with your children and giving them just the reality of like, hey, reality is this is it. And it's a beautiful reality to be in. But to take that now intentionality to continue those friendships just takes grace and intentionality and just honesty. So whether it's you put something on the calendar and you check in with friends the night before or the morning of and say, hey, we scheduled this. How are you doing? And then being able to have the grace with the friends that you're creating to understand, hey, I don't know what the reality of your home looks like. If it really helps to get out of the house, would love to see you, would love to connect. But if not, our friendship isn't make or break off of a one-time experience. And I think that's even what I encourage a lot of the people in my community. The first time you meet someone or make eye contact with someone, they're not going to be your best friend. You might not meet your best friend like the first time you're out in community at something, but it's really coming into that giving grace and taking the time to nurture that. But that also comes with its challenge is that it takes a lot of time to nurture and have that friendship for connection. But once you do find them, it's like we all mentioned at the beginning, it is one of the best things and best assets to your life.
Love that, Jamie. You're teeing up some great points. We've got tips from Danielle coming up, and so lots of good things here. And I want to pull it back to Megan now. Megan, you've built a community specifically for neurodivergent moms, as you mentioned, and how has that changed your perspective on friendship? And what advice would you give to mothers who might not feel like they fit in to these other communities for moms?
Yeah, and I think that moms, especially when their children start showing challenges that they have even from a young age, there's an immediate isolation. Moms, we want our children to be healthy and happy and successful in whatever way that looks like to them. And so it's very clear early on when we are struggling because our kids are struggling. I don't have time for friendships, moms will think, right? My kid has therapies and doctor's appointments, and I don't know what's wrong. They're having big meltdowns and intense feelings. They got kicked out of preschool, whatever it is. There can be some really, really challenging stuff. Moms will say, I don't have time to connect with anybody. I don't have any energy or spoons with the spoon theory to give to friendships. But what they don't realize, and this was totally me when my son was young, is that it's the friendships that are going to carry you through the hard moments. And that goes obviously for moms across the board. When you're raising kids who others are judging or critiquing or criticizing, it is extremely lonely in school settings, in community settings, with extended family. And you feel like you need to take your baby and retreat and just protect them to keep them safe. What happens over time is that, mental health suffers because you're retreating and not talking about it with anybody else. And so, for moms who are raising neurodivergent kids who do not have a support system, they do not have friendships, it is truly life-changing to find at least one person who understands what you are going through and can say, I've been through that too. And of course, the hard part is how to find them, but Marco Polo certainly helps with that a lot.
The virtual community, which we'll touch on in a little bit. Jimmy, I want to pass it back to you. The Mom Walk Collective started as this small in-person, source of support for you and many moms in your area. And you kind of touched on, where are people at and going in the neighborhood and that thing. But it's grown to a national movement. How has that kind of happened? How did you grow it in such a way?
Yeah, for those who don't have a background of what the collective is, we are a catch-free space for moms to meet friends. I'm also so nervous that I had a babysitter fall through, so we might have a little guest at one point. Um, you found scissors. I love it. Welcome to motherhood, everyone. I knew this was going to happen at one point, so thank you guys for the grace.
You're good.
I was afraid that was going to happen right when I was speaking, and
Right,
it
yeah.
did.
Of course, just on cue, just on cue.
Yes. You can have as much as you want. So when I came into motherhood, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I was coming into motherhood as a single mom. I had a traumatic brain injury, which sparked a bunch of mental health stuff back in 2019. And we knew, being pregnant and postpartum, that my mental health journey was going to be challenging. So I prepped with my team of midwives to talk about, hey, before we do any big type of interventions, what's things that we could put in my toolbox to help with my mental health. And this is really even before we talked about a community or village or having that. It's like, what tools could I have? And my biggest part for my mental health was getting out and walking. And so we budgeted in my weekly budget to go out every day, get a coffee at a coffee shop, walk there, walk back. And it was life-saving for me, but it was so lonely. And in the conversation that we're all having, that motherhood is so lonely. And so I hosted my first walk. I had 2 moms show up. So I posted a video online and said, hey, if any moms want to come meet me, I'm going to get coffee, go for a walk. And the 2 moms that showed up at the first one dramatically changed my life. Kind of in the conversation that we're all having today is, hey, we feel seen, we feel heard, we feel empowered. And I created a recap video, put it back up online, and it ended up going viral. And the same conversation we're having now is what I was seeing in the captions in the comments of people saying, hey, how do I start this in my city? How do I see this? And I sat down and took a moment with God, and I felt him say this thing in my heart: it's time to serve moms. And so we've been running on it since, basically replicating what I did for my own mental health to a national, now international level. So in the last 2.5, almost 3 years, we went from me hosting one walk to now having over 450 cities across the world. And the thing that I think has set us in the ability to grow so quickly and so expansively is, one, keeping it catch free. Because for me, I couldn't afford mommy and me classes. I couldn't afford extra therapies or anything. I was living on that single mom income and everything. So we really take that into accountability of, come when you can. If you can't, it's totally okay. We'll see you next time. You don't lose anything financially, and there's no rejection. So there's no criteria that you have to come or not. So I think eliminating on those factors that some organizations have to sustain really, I think, helps in the growth of it. And then 2, the women who lead all of these cities believe in the same mission. So just like you guys are all on this call here today, it's that same understanding of, I walked motherhood alone for a season, and I want to walk with moms so they have a place to meet friends and get out of the house. And if it's a word of encouragement, or if it's a hug, or if it's a, hey, we understand you don't have to perform and you can just be, then so be it. And so I think kind of having that mission, and exactly how kind of like Marco Polo started, us starting with a mission, has done so well for us. And where we also love to stand is, we're not in any competition with any other mom group, because our mission is just to complete motherhood, not compete with it. So in that environment of, hey, how can we complete the mission of motherhood, of having a safe place for people that's free and it's consistent to find friends has done really well. And I think that's also what you guys at Marco Polo do and what it sounds like all these other organizations do as well. And so the hope is just to continue that expansion, and it seems like it's happening, which is really fun and really beautiful.
Yeah. Jamie, I got chills as you were talking about how you just kind of put it out there like, hey, I'm looking for other moms to walk with me. And I think so often there's like, what if no one came, right? There's that like, okay, what if this? And so the idea that those two women joined you and it's kicked off such a movement like this is just truly incredible. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And Danielle, as we're talking about communities, both, in person and virtual, one thing that comes up is like, the struggle to make real friendships that go beyond that, like, how was your day? How's the weather? Like casual kind of conversations. Are there ways that you recommend to turn surface level connections into lasting friendships?
Yes. The first I would offer women is to be vulnerable. Now, before we check out and say, like, oh, yes, because we've heard that before. But I have what I don't believe should be a hot take, but I want to be really clear on what vulnerability is. And I'm about to offer this in the hopes that some of us realize that maybe we haven't been practicing it and there's an opportunity to do authentically that really does move us toward a deeper place with women we care about and women we trust. And so, oftentimes when we hear about vulnerability, especially as moms, we tend to think about, the image of talking about our childhood trauma with someone or crying a lot. And while those things certainly qualify as vulnerability, I want to remind us that vulnerability means you are taking a real risk of rejection. For some of us, we need to lean into that because there is a concept known as the beautiful mess effect. And the idea is that once we are vulnerable with people, it endears them to us. It makes us more human and it bonds us to them. So I always say that women show vulnerability. We can show it in four ways. So if you're taking a social risk, that means you're taking a social risk of appearing weak. So I'm going to say or do this thing, and I know it's going to make me look weak or incompetent, but I'm going to do it. Okay. We take the social risk of appearing wrong. I'm going to look like I'm wrong and I'm not used to that, right? That could be apologizing, like that is considered vulnerable too. I have to say sorry to another mom. Okay, that counts as vulnerability. For looking weird, where I have an opinion that's different than the mom group, but I've been sitting on it quietly because I don't want to be rejected for it in this community. And finally, we have a fear of speaking up for appearing wonderful, which might sound odd, but especially in female dominated circles, we really value egalitarianism, which means we all look like we're all on the same level. I'm not greater than you, right? So it feels risky sometimes to say or share something that might make you look like you're shining and above the group. So maybe it's a win that you had with your child when everybody else is struggling with it. Well, I don't want to share it because I don't want to look like I think I, that might be vulnerable to share something that we're celebrating in our home with our children. And so really think about the things that genuinely feel socially risky for you to share with other moms. I encourage you to lean into that to the degree that it feels appropriate. That is authentic vulnerability. Is there a chance that you are rejected for it and people call you a little less? Yes, there is. Is there equal parts chance that there is a woman who finds that endearing, that she says, oh my gosh, me too, and that you build even deeper bonds through acceptance? Yes. And so in terms of getting closer to friends, I think really exploring what genuinely feels like a social risk for you and exercising it with women you trust, I think takes things to another level. And it's something that we can all stand to do a little more of.
Yeah. Danielle, and with moms who are maybe, sharing in the chat, like, hey, I don't have a village right now. Like, where do you recommend moms or women go to find these friendships and to start at those surface level conversations, but then get into vulnerability as well?
Yeah, there are three things a woman can do if you feel like, man, I'm starting from scratch. I don't have these people. The first is you know of someone who is a mom. You know, someone. We all do, somebody. You can leverage their intel. A lot of times we think we have to use what we know, but maybe you're working with a limited scope right now. There is no harm in asking someone you know who's a mom, who we're not close, to say, man, I don't. Where are you finding mom friends, girl? Because I'm struggling. It's playful, it's not intense, but I'm asking for your intel because I don't know where to look. And the average person is happy for an opportunity to give their 2 cents on what they know and what they've got going on. So the first is take the pressure off of you needing to know everything. Ask a mom where she's finding people and leverage her intel. That's number one. The second is we have all these wonderful digital communities where we are able to kind of connect with different people, lean into that as well. And then the last thing I would say is to really keep your eyes open when you do go places in person, whether it's to the park or whether it's to the coffee shop that you like to walk to. I think we romanticize these meet cutes with friends, and sometimes it's happening when you are sitting at the park and that other mom who's sitting on the bench across, but you've convinced yourself it would be much too awkward to say hello, ask a question. There's opportunities everywhere. I think we need to retrain our mind that it might look very unsexy. It might not look like in a movie. It might look like, asking the mom sitting next to you at the park who you think it would be weird, but it wouldn't. A question, or oh my gosh, her shoes are so cute. We're looking for new footwear because I feel like she outgrows these things like every minute. Where are you getting them from? That's it. Worst case scenario, she gives me an answer. She was pleasant and we were done. Best case scenario, she's really chatting me up and giving a signal of, okay, she's open, she's receptive, okay? But those are three ways to get started that feel like a low lift, but gradually position us for some connections that we can then take and deepen.
Yeah, that's awesome, Danielle. Those are three great ones. And number two of working with the virtual community, Megan, you help people foster like real friendships over an app digitally. And sometimes these people are thousands of miles away. How do you and Mothers Together help people form these real relationships online? I know it touches on like vulnerability, as Danielle mentioned, authenticity. How does that happen? How have you seen it?
Yeah, totally. Vulnerability is one of the key words that we use in the Mothers Together community. And it is really cool that it's been worldwide. That was not like something I ever envisioned. We have moms in more than 30 countries. It's crazy because how is it possible that I can meet my mom friend soulmate and she lives across the world? Well, it's because we're feeling the same way about motherhood. But the only way, just as Danielle was saying, the only way that we're going to know how the other mom is feeling is through vulnerability. And so, specifically for my community, vulnerability goes hand in hand with validation. All of us, moms everywhere, are always looking for validation. But speaking specifically to parents who are raising neurodivergent kids, I need to feel validated when I say, I don't feel like I'm doing motherhood correctly. I feel like a failure. My kid, after getting kicked out of the third preschool in a row, this is clearly my fault. I wasn't meant to be a mom. When we have those kinds of thoughts, in no matter what community, first of all, they're toxic and they're poisonous, and we have to get them outside of our body because when we keep them inside, they fester and they rot, and it's terrible for our mental health. And we all know what that feels like. And so we need to be able to share and receive validation on the other side. And so for us, this is why this works worldwide. I can say my kid had a really tough school drop off today, and I feel like I have failed them in getting them to school. I'm going to share that story in a very vulnerable, authentic way. And on the other end, in a trusting community with trustworthy friends, I know that I'm going to receive validation back. It is okay. That sounds incredibly hard. It would be hard for me too. I understand what you're going through, right? So for us, validation and vulnerability go hand in hand. And from there, that's when the connections form. That's when the deep connections form. And that's that. It doesn't matter where you live. And of course, Marco Polo really helps with that too. It doesn't matter where you live because we are all feeling these same things as we go through motherhood.
I love like adding in the validation to that, Megan. And I think it goes back to what Danielle was saying too. Like if you are vulnerable and someone 50-50 chance you're accepted or not, but when you do get that validation back, then it's like, okay, I can build on this and share more, which is really beautiful. And Jamie, building an in-person community, what are some of the unexpected things that you've learned about moms and friendship from seeing, thousands of women show up to walk together?
Yeah, I first want to just validate Danielle. That was incredible. I like from a mom myself, I think even, and I hope all of you guys listening are hearing and feeling this way too, because even those who build communities still feel this way. So I like just loved everything that you just shared because it shuts such a reminder to me. Because I was in this question was thinking of the unexpected things. Is one take and kind of like line that I've used is community heals faster than advice. In all of this aspects of things, of a lot of moms really aren't looking to be told how to walk their motherhood journey because we don't know the ins and outs of everything that is going on in your day-to-day reality. And so what I've seen a lot from my moms is they're not really wanting to be told how to sleep train. They're not wanting to be told how to have a work motherhood life balance. They're just wanting to be seen and to be championed, to know that they're strong enough and can be empowered in the choices that they make. And that to me was really interesting. I thought so much of motherhood and that motherhood journey is like sharing of like, oh, this is how I did this and this is how I did that. But most of the time, it's similar to what Danielle said. It's just sparking conversation to feel related to feel that you can have someone in your corner, whether it's just starting over talking about a simple pair of shoes and then just talking about like life and the things. And then once you get into the nitty gritty and you've built a level of trust, then it can go into asking, the life-changing questions and advice. But really what I've seen, especially in the in-person space, is a mom just wants permission to be her, and a mom wants permission to trust her natural instinct. And a mom wants permission, and through society and what we're seeing on social media, on parenting coaches, and just influencers and how they live their life, and all of these different aspects, we compare ourselves to questioning the gut of the natural instinct because we're seeing so much than the normal human really probably should. And so what I've seen in person is moms just wanting to be like, you're doing a great job. I love that. That's so cool. Like I have so much empathy for you. That's got to be really hard balancing and juggling these things. Way to go. Just validating the reality of what they've chosen for their family and not being judged for. And so that's where I've really seen community heal so much quicker than coming into a mom and saying, hey, this is how I think you should be as a mom, but saying, hey, I love what you're choosing to do for your family. I don't know what it looks like, but it's really cool to hear that you're confident in the decisions that you're making. And like, if there's ever a chance that, you want any advice or anything, or you want to hear my journey, or you want me to connect you with someone that's maybe going through a similar experience, would love to connect you. And that right there has just been a massive change of things that I just didn't expect of like, and two, that community could be one or two people, one or two people saying, hey, you're amazing. You're crushing it. I love you. I'm glad you're here. I'm so glad you made it out of the house. Versus feeling as though we have to have 10, 20, 30 people around us validating, to show that we've made it or we have our mom community. It really only takes, one to two to be that community for them to feel that they're doing a great job as mom.
I love that. Before we turn it over for some questions, I've got a final kind of question for the panelists here. What's one small thing you can do if you're feeling lonely or unsupported in whatever stage of motherhood you're at? And what would you tell someone who's wondering like where their village is? I love, Jamie, how you talked about the village doesn't have to be all these people. It can be just a couple people. And so curious if there's any tips around this.
Yeah, I think if I were to like be asked it in this place of a small thing, I think both Megan and Danielle have touched on this so many times, but it's that putting yourself out there. It's the small risk. It's the risk of knowing that it's not rejection, it's just redirection, and putting yourself in places where there's opportunity to make friendship, whether that is people of similar faith, whether that is the library, whether that is a coffee shop, whether that is a playground. I think putting one thing on the calendar, whether it's starting one thing a month, and that feels like a big accomplishment for you, or if it's one thing a week that feels like is like sustainable and obtainable for you, to put yourself in an environment where you can have the opportunity to make friends. For me, that I think is something that I would lean towards and even find myself in, is trying a new park every week, trying a new coffee shop every week, somewhere that is a new environment that has the possibility of meeting someone new. But I'm excited to hear what you guys say from a virtual level as well.
Danielle or Megan? Oh, Megan?
Yeah, sure. I think that I definitely agree with Jamie in terms of putting yourself out there. That being said, it is of course easier said than done, and we all know that. And so it's finding and thinking about where might there be a place where there are moms who are going through something similar that I am. So if you are bringing your toddler to library playgroup, for sure, like that might be a great place. If you are raising a neurodivergent kid, you might even ask the school guidance counselor. You might even see if there is a school support piece. You're Googling things that are local, and you're probably going to come up empty-handed, which often does happen, and that's where the virtual piece comes in. See where you can connect with one other person, and it might even be somebody on Instagram or on social media. There are so many wonderful people, and yes, they have big followings, and you might not get a hold of them right away, but it is therapeutic simply to type out the message, I am relating to the story that you just shared. This feels like my story. I can't believe that this is the first time I've heard someone tell a story that sounds like mine. And so it's even before you've made the connections, it is a practice of a skill of sharing, of not internalizing, but sharing and putting yourself out there. So putting yourself out there can absolutely be in person. It can also be virtual. It can also be journaling. You're putting yourself out there in a vulnerable way, and then you rip up your journal paper and throw it away. It's wherever you need to start getting the things that are inside, the thoughts and the feelings that you have out of you, so that they're not sitting in there and festering.
Yeah, I would say for a person who's struggling with loneliness or disconnection, I would offer two things. The first is to be the community you're looking for. And again, I know that's a general thing we hear all the time. Here's what I mean, because I like to get tangible. I know sometimes we're like, but I need connection. I need people to see me. I need something that will instantly ease your sense of disconnection from the world is to look up a domestic violence shelter, look up a hospital, look up a food bank, look up something tangible and real, and go and donate your clothes instead of a thrift store, which I love a good thrift shop, but instead of a thrift store where I don't really see where my clothes went. I'm going to go to a mom in my neighborhood. I'm going to go drop it off in person to those teen moms at that shelter. I want to look in the face of people who have this need and go and just say, here, I thought you guys could use this. It's not transactional. It takes my mind away from, okay, well, I'm doing this for this woman, but hopefully, it's her turn next. I've released that. I know somebody else needs this. And so I'm just going to move. I feel a prompting to move. Let me go be that for others. This is not a feel good piece of advice. It's because it's proven that when I do these kinds of pro-social things, it keeps me optimistic about community being available because I am the community. So there's something about the gesture of giving to somebody else that gives me this experience of, okay, we are out here. This is happening. I was seen in that way and people are out here. So it's very tiny, but it can provide a powerful shift. The second thing I would offer, second and final thing for a woman who's feeling disconnected, is it might be helpful to identify the kind of loneliness you're experiencing. There's research that finds that there are three types of loneliness: intimate, relational, and collective. Loneliness refers to a lack of being intimately known. Some of us might have this satisfied by a best friend or a romantic partner. But if that's my issue, it might mean I have no shortage of friends, but I'm not really opening up to them. Well, that's the issue. Your issue is not you need to get more people. That's not going to be the answer for you. So your answer might lie there. The second is relational loneliness, which means you lack just friendships where you know people just out and about and they know you. And finally, collective loneliness, which means you don't feel like you're a part of something greater than yourself. So this is why it's so beautiful having these mom groups because it reminds you, yeah, I am not alone. I'm a part of something bigger. So whether it's a religious organization, volunteering for a cause you really believe in, those things remind you I am not separate. I am a part of something greater and I feel less lonely. So sometimes there's power in being able to have language to identify the specific kind of loneliness you're going through in this season to offer direction on where to begin moving your feet to resolve that.
Thank you all for sharing that. We've got a bunch of questions coming in, and Danielle, we have a couple coming in for you around, how do you release being rejected by potential mom friends without being offended? And kind of along the same lines, like, how can you deal with the grief or disappointment in a friendship that fades? So, kind of that rejection of friendship that happens.
Yeah. First, let me say, I would like to think I'm a relatively strong conversationalist and a charismatic woman. And wouldn't you know, there's people who reject me too. And I'm like, are you crazy? And I'm joking, but what I mean here is, if you're putting it into like your performance or you're beginning to internalize it, well, gosh, what's wrong with me? That would be our first mistake. But if there's any part of you that believes that there is something about you that's unlovable, unworthy, or somehow repellent, you will see that confirmed when you are rejected. But rejection is inevitable for a myriad of reasons. Maybe these women have a history and it just kind of disrupts their ecosystem to kind of bring in this new woman that they have to explain all the old jokes to, or whatever it is. It has nothing to do with me, right? So the first is really ask yourself, okay, I've got to stop internalizing that because this discourages you from trying again. Women will say like, well, gosh, I thought we were cool, but they didn't invite me to the pool party they were having for the kids. So you know what? This is why I'm not even trying. And that's a dangerous place to be. Instead, can I start training my brain to go to, okay, I guess it's not our season. Or, okay, maybe, they've got their own thing going on. And I don't get upset about it. It stings because we're human. It stings a little, but I put my head on a swivel and I open my eyes to the people who have been kind of reaching out to me, but maybe I've missed the mark, right? And the last thing I'll say is kind of a mindset thing is you have to adopt the identity of a connector. It is not something you do, it is who you are. Because when we say, oh, I'm going to connect more and put myself out there, it's a behavior. So when people don't respond well to it, then I give up on trying that behavior again. If I really download being a connector as who I am, then the things I do are just a part of my identity. So if a woman says, actually, it's kind of a closed group, or they don't follow up and invite me to that second book club meeting, I'm a connector in spite of their response. So connecting and reaching out is what I do. Maybe I'm seeing that my efforts aren't appreciated here and that stings, but I'm going to keep reaching out because somebody needs me and somebody really aligns with my values, my sense of humor. And these women, this group isn't it. And so I think the mindset piece, although not as tangible, is really, really important to have a certain resilience when rejection inevitably happens.
Love that, Danielle. I can see people in the chat agreeing that they're connectors too. So glad that there's the connectors are here. One more question, Jamie, this is for you. If you aren't a mom, so you don't have that in common, what can you do to support your friends who are moms?
I love that. I would say majority of my friends now are still not parents, just the season of life. I'm 30, so I have the in between of people that not married, don't have kids, or married and waiting to start a family. And one thing that I always ask is, can you guys meet me where I'm at? And so I am so lucky to have friends that have seen what that looks like for my life, as well as me communicate. And so what I've communicated to my friends, I have given them my locations and on Find My Friends. And I say, if you see that I'm home, please, you don't need to text, you don't need to call. I love when you can stop by or if you'd like to hop on the daily responsibilities and tasks that I'm doing in my day-to-day life. So that looks like going on a scooter ride with me and my son, going to the grocery store with us. I think someone had mentioned that earlier. And so I think from a friend's perspective, reaching out and asking and saying, what feels complimentary to me to come into your life? And they may say, hey, I'm looking for the flexibility if I have to change plans, or maybe they're going to say something of like, can you never propose dinner plans at 8 because that is bedtime, and can we do dinner at 5? Or maybe it may be as simple as them asking for a consistent scheduled time to connect with you. Because I want to validate you as the friend and the outside. Your mom friends deeply still want relationship with you. They don't want to leave you or forsake you. That is something that a mom walks through on her journey as well. I think I had to grieve the reality and closeness that I used to walk with those friends because we were in such similar seasons of life. And so to just validate you even being interested in trying to continue to have that closeness with those friends who have started their families is really beautiful, because that means the world to a mom, because she loves you too. And she wants you a part of her life. And so I think one, just being asking honestly of like, how can I be an asset? And then also thinking, what would she really like in her day-to-day reality be able to accommodate to make this friendship sustainable? So really encourage that, and just popping up at their house. To me, some might not like it. I also am the woman who, when people show up at my house, it is not clean, it is not tidy, and I say, welcome to a lived-in experience. And that is my opening call when my friends walk into my house and there are dishes and laundry and everything. So check with your friends first if that's okay. But I think simple things like that is just showing them that, hey, you see them in the midst of their life expansion and their life development of what they're going through in that season really means a ton to them.
Thank you so much, Jamie. And I know there are many more questions going on here in the chat, and we're coming to our time. And so I wanted to, the panelists joining us today, if attendees wanted to get involved in your communities, or those watching the replay, they want to learn more about how they can create these types of friendships that can support and uplift, where can they find each of you? Megan, we can kick it off with you.
Yeah, sure. Gosh, there are many ways you can find me. First of all, I'm pretty active on Instagram. I'm at On the Hard Days. There's dots in between each word. But if you just put up my name into Instagram, it should come up. But I also have a website, ontheharddays.com. My community is called Mothers Together. I run a virtual Marco Polo based open house every quarter. That's free. I want you to just come on in, sit on my virtual front porch so we can just chat, and give you some of that validation and support and connection that you probably are desperately needing. So you can check me out via the website or the Instagram. And I also have a podcast called On the Hard Days. The podcast is not really advice-based. It's more validation and vulnerability based. I bring moms on who are raising neurodivergent kids, and they just share what their life is like. And so highly recommend, if you're a podcast listener, that you check that out too. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Danielle, where can those attending find you?
Yeah, this has been so wonderful. First of all, let me say, just to see so many people here who are very intentional about connection, and the chat is just like popping, which is one indicator that there's so much good stuff happening here. So everything for me lives at betterfemalefriendships.com. The podcast and the coaching and the articles, all the things lives at betterfemalefriendships.com. And that's just our little way of helping women to enjoy more satisfaction in their friendship landscape. So that's where everything lives. And I look forward to connecting with everyone over there.
So thanks, Danielle. And Jamie, where can they find you?
Yeah, the best place would be our website, which is themomwalkcollective.com. You can go, there's a walk finder, so you could type in your zip code and it will pull up the local walk closest to you. And all of those local ambassadors post their walk calendars for you to be able to find out when a walk near you is happening. Another place to see fun things that are going on is our Instagram, which is the Mom Walk Co. You will also see every local Instagram. So any local city that hosts a walk, it will be the momwalkco.their city. So you can get in tune with the local moms around you. And then you can follow me personally at Jamie Easton. Love to just talk about motherhood and all things. And this has been such a privilege. I love this. These are things that like make me come alive. Also, just hearing from other inspiring moms. So thank you, Danielle and Megan. This is just wonderful. So thank you guys so much for having me.
Awesome. And Tira's putting those links in the chat for those watching live, and we'll also link these out in the recording that's being emailed out after this as well. So be on the lookout in your inboxes as a ways to connect with these three panelists today. I want to close today with a quote from the former U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, as he spoke about the epidemic of loneliness. We are made to connect. Social connection is as essential to our long-term survival as food and water. As we showed earlier, parents and moms especially are impacted by loneliness, and as Flada shared, connection with friends and family can really help. So if you take away just one thing from today, I hope it's how important it is to connect with the people in your life who help you feel less alone and give you a sense of belonging in the sometimes trying journey of motherhood. I encourage each of you to reach out to your mom friends and be the mom that others reach out to uplift and support each other, because that's how we all can individually begin to chip away at the loneliness and isolation that so many of us are feeling in the world today. I want to thank our three panelists for dropping some great, suggestions and feedback, and the one-liners that came out of this are so good, and just all the different tips. So thank you three for being here today. I also wanted to share that for those who are on Marco Polo, or even if you're not yet, in that follow-up email, we are going to be linking a 2-month plus pass. We have a free version of Marco Polo. We have an optional paid version, and we're going to give everyone attending or who signed up a free 2-month experience to get on and share that pass with your friends or new friends you're looking to make to start having conversations there as well. So be on the lookout for that in the email as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been awesome to see the conversation happening and the connection happening even in the chat as this great conversation was going on. And I hope it's been really impactful for you. So thank you so much, everyone, and hope you have a great rest of your day.